I'm of the opinion that this is all going to collapse. I actually think this is actually a very dangerous timeline in the Mauz organization, the Mauz camp, because this roster feels relatively, I mean, this is kind of a mean way to put it, but it feels relatively like half-assed.
Right, we're back for another episode of Snake and Banter. Our guest is a return guest. It's obviously Mouz. Also, technically, a lot of people wouldn't know this. A long time ago, many, many moons ago, one of the first places Mauisnake ever appeared in my content was actually on Counterpoints. So actually, this isn't Mouz returning. This is Maui getting his second appearance. I think you had like 2 or 3 appearances, to be fair. Another appearance on Counterpoints. Mauisnake here from the Peakers Advantage. Oh, wait, sorry, that's dead. That podcast is dead. So now he's in... Now he's in my crew. I jumped him in, and now he's in my crew, and Mouz is off doing events and stuff.
Wow, and now nice. he's throwing me a favor. You know, getting me on the podcast.
okay. That's
life has come full circle.
Yeah. And here's how you know it is a very different world, though, to the world of Counterpoints. Is back when we did Counterpoints, the perception of Mouz was he's actually sort of the grounding, reasonable person who makes Thorin's craziness not that, unacceptable. And he sort of makes it up. He puts that professional sheen on. But by the fact that Mouz has the first point of the show, that means technically Mouz has the spiciest point to start the show off with. So what we start with Mouz? Where we go now, mate? What's edgy now, mate?
Okay. Well, yeah, I didn't think this was edgy when I typed it up. You're the one who told me it was edgy.
I think it is.
Okay, so my bad point is the recent Mauz roster moves. I think, we've had this incredible start to it where there was that nice run, nice performances out of xertioN, who was getting 1.7 out there in Astana. Like it was nuts. But I think overall, I'm of the opinion that this is all going to collapse. I actually think this is actually a very dangerous timeline in the Mauz organization, the Mauz camp, because this roster feels relatively, I mean, this is kind of a mean way to put it, but it feels relatively like half-assed. Like Zelix has been brought up, xertioN is now your IGL, JL's kind of brought in, kind of a stand-in, kind of to test the waters for both parties. So when you make someone like xertioN the IGL, someone who's a playmaker, someone who likes to be a guy doing opening moves, who likes to be aggressive, you're always going to see a little bit of an uptick because now the strategies he's calling based off the plays he wants to make, and the timings of those strategies are his timings for those plays. So his uptick, I think, is a little bit of like a false hope there, to where I think that's going to come back down. On top of that, you have him as your IGL, who is notoriously within this team, one of the guys who you feel his impact missing the most when they get to the biggest games and the playoff games. Like you feel that lack of xertioN playmaking in those moments. So having him as the IGL kind of makes me nervous in that regard. But with all these kind of pieces swirling around, I actually think this is on the verge. Like this team could just get torn apart by the end of this major. Like I feel like there's a real world where this team just kind of gets vultured. And players will because this doesn't feel like a complete unit, like it has a cohesive thought to it. So I could see a world where JL says, no, actually, I don't want to be part of this. And Spink says, yeah, actually, I came here to be the guy on a top 3 team. I left Vitality for this. I don't want to be here anymore. I could see Torji saying, you know what, I've been here for a long time. I've put my shift. I could see all these guys having a reason to take a more enticing offer moving into the future, because I think there's going to be some real struggles in Mauz's future with this arrangement. And much like the Brolin to IGL move, it's like maybe it's not the short term, but whenever you get this new IGL in, it's when they have to make changes, when they have to adapt, when players get unhappy, when the playbook needs to get refreshed. That's where these struggles are going to start creeping up, and then we'll just see if the stress test is there. But I think it's going to crumble. I think this whole Mouz team could actually kind of fall away.
Okay, I think that's spicy.
Yeah, it is. It is great. It is. It's pretty hot.
Is it like spicy yet grounded in logic spicy? Or
by the way, you'll see. I don't think it's a bad take. I agree with you. Here's why I think it's spicy. Because one, we were all supposed to until 5 minutes ago, but just be fine with now making all those top 4s, and they never need to make a roster move. So if they then make a roster move and you're basically saying they're going to fail, I think that's spicy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong as well. This is, this is the sense I get from this Mouse. This is the read I have on him in the moment. This is the story that I'm going to track going into the major.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I get the narrative angle of it. I think the xertioN uptick in performance does mimic what Electronic did when he became the IGL of NaVi. Remember how he became the in-game leader after the Antwerp Major. Then they go on to win the Blast Spring Finals immediately after, and that was like, I think that was probably his best tournament all year. And it definitely sort of started fading, and that's what we've seen. I don't know if we've always seen the same uptick, but per the role, actually, it's this is what parallels his trajectory the best. The unfortunate thing is that Mouz didn't actually parlay that into an actual tournament win, because they just get top 4 again. So did anything really even change at all? But at least they lose to the eventual winners of the tournament in spirit. They did get bodied at it. I think that it's actually good for xertioN, though. I'm actually going to say this. If anything, there may be aspects to this that negatively impact Mouz as a team in the long run, but in the short run, I think this is exactly what xertioN should be doing. I felt like he was always one of those decent star players. Like he's like definitely a solid aggressive rifler, but he was never reaching above to get whatever. Like when so many teams now have like a Kyosuke or a Donk or even a Flamesy, is xertioN really of that caliber? My gut feeling is no, and he never really was. Maybe in group stages, actually, he was definitely there, but anytime you see him go toe to toe with a world's elite rifler like that, generally he just gets worked unless the game plan was really good around him. So now he gets to be the aggressive rifler, gets to be fairly selfless in some of these positions, which I think most IGL should be. I think this is the exact role that I think most IGL should take on for themselves. Just be forward, be aggressive. Don't really look to be set up, but look to, with your own positioning and spacing, set up your opponent or your teammates behind you. I think that there's too many moving pieces for me to write this Mouz roster off. I actually think that, like, the thing that watching them at Astana for me was that it was pretty shocking how Spinks was not really able, because he had to move in a couple spots. Like, he took up some of Yimpat spaces and stuff like that, and it was kind of like it was kind of tough for him to find the same level of impact that you're used to seeing, where he always gets his good timings, where like there's like 1 to 2 T side rounds that are based off of him pressing forward and getting something, and then on CT side, he's not really my favorite guy to watch coordinate with another guy on a bomb site. He usually wants to do his own thing. I guess he wasn't always the best at that, and that was kind of exposed when he was next to Zelix a couple times, where just looked like he was leaving Zelix out to dry by himself. On the greater narrative side of this, though, I think that this Mouz team is pretty. I think that the narrative that I remember the morning desk was doing, which was Bled, Prof, and Tech Girl, was that they were really happy and excited to see this, and I just kind of thought, I think that's just the novelty. I don't actually think it's the long-term feeling I'm going to have for this team is that I'm going to see this new look Mouz. I will say I'm definitely more excited to watch them with JL than any of the guys they had in the past. I think that kind of makes them more exciting almost just by the body language eye test, but it doesn't really actually translate to in the server me being reinvigorated and thinking that this Mouz is going to do damage out of nowhere.
How did JL look in Astana? Just out of curiosity, I didn't get to see many of the games.
All right.
Yeah, I'd say some of the T sides he was awesome on. I actually really liked watching him. When for example the round gets a little bit hectic, it always felt like he knew what to do. I'd even say CT side, like he was there to me, even though the rating doesn't say this. To me, he was their most polished mid-late round player. I thought that he was actually making so many good moves to just not give up a win, like a losing condition. Like if it's like 3 guys are retaking from short on Dust 2, and he's the long guy and he's stuck there, he just waits for them to get close. Then he swings with perfect timing, exactly like he's supposed to, and he doesn't let himself get pushed when the other team knows that they need to kill him to try to make the post plant possible. So he still has like really good instincts for just how to play every single situation out as a team, but he didn't really have pop-off moments. But I'd say per the positions they put him in, I think he's really good in those spots.
I'm not really generally a fan of most of these moves, but like for different reasons for each. It's not the idea that these are just bad players or the wrong move. It's like there's 2 angles. One is it does actually stick in my craw, as we say, that essentially they didn't make the roster move at the end of last year, which is when everyone said you should because you've plateaued and you're not winning events. They then themselves counter-signaled that message of like, well, we don't need to, we're making top 4s, which to me implies, I think this is even said by Spinks right before the roster moves, they were sort of like, all we need to do is like win 1 more match and we win the tournament, something like that. They had some sort of line like that. Well, you know what? I agree with you. I think you were close to getting the championships. But these moves, one, suggest we were right. You should have just made these moves months ago. And then secondly, because you've made them like in the middle of the season, you've now given up this major, because if people don't know, JL can't play at this major. They have to bring Brolan back. So what you've basically done in that scenario is you've gone from a team that started the year as you should be like a dark horse to win the major to we're just giving up this one basically. Cologne's almost like, the last run with Brolan, and then the real roster's whatever's in second season. And as of right now, technically, I believe JL's just like at standing. We don't even know if JL will be the fifth player. So the other thing I find bizarre that I don't like about this is I don't hate the idea that they were an elite team last year and they just didn't win. But now I feel like you've taken a step down, and this looks like a really long-term attempt to approach. Because think about it, you need the exertion IGL move has to work. Otherwise, we're going to be like retooling that and either bringing a new person into the IGL or changing the style of the team. And I agree, by the way, if anything, I actually have mad red flags for how close all these games are. And he was fragging out of his mind and being a rookie IGL. Also, I'll just throw this out there. Anytime an IGL, this is what I always thought when Twisted it in Liquid, anytime an IGL is a bit too good at fragging while doing it as the first time they become an IGL, it makes me wonder, are you just fragging and not doing that much of the IGL part? Like, that's the obvious concern, isn't it?
Well, I guess there's also the other side of that too, which is I think part of the reason why I almost feel like this roster change probably didn't get as much like crazy attention around it as it deserved, but I guess part of like the reason why maybe it flew under the radar a little bit is because we were already sort of the opinion with Mouz that xertioN and Torji were like the two most vocal guys on the team, while Brolan was the IGL, right? There was that certain feel to it where your Opper and your Playmaker were kind of the most vocal guys directly.
I mean, Chad even implied on some maps maybe he does just call some of the shit, right?
Yeah. So maybe there was an element to where it's like, he was already kind of doing it for 40-50% of the way, and now it's just kind of gone the rest of it home. So there's that angle to it, which I think is intriguing. But yeah, I just feel like there's no one plans, no organization, no like front office like plans on going into a major saying we're going to cut these two players and then we're going to bring one of them back just for the major. So that tells me that something within the team had to have gotten to a breaking point, right? Like that would be the next implication, whether it's just attitudes blew up or they got to a point where mutually they just agreed there was no way to work past whatever obstacle was there. That's the feeling I have with this team. But I don't know. I look at this and going into the major, I'm like, man, like a bad major. And I feel like in some sense they've got to feel so lucky that they're in stage 3 of the major. Maybe lucky is not the right word, but they're starting in stage 3. And also maybe that's a little bit of a curse, because this does feel like a lineup you would want to like power up through stage 1. Like get the softer opposition that you can get some reps with, get some softer opposition to get you in the flow of things and the rhythm of things. They're going to get dropped into stage 3 and have to play against like fucking Falcons, Vitality, like NaVi, like it's going to be very, very difficult. Yeah. It's like, good luck, trial by fire now.
And then there's 2 other angles as well. So, go on, Moses. Go on, Maui.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that I think I said this on like a Feed the Trolls a while back, and that I'm kind of glad about, is that even though this seems to be a long-term move, that I think that they're actually, even though the results may not get better because the opposition that stands in their way still proves extremely formidable in NaVi, Vitality, now Spirit, Falcons. Like, I don't know if they were ever going to beat those teams before, but I'm just glad that they pulled the trigger on something, which I feel like is more so spurred by the fact that Cyclone signed an extension to Mouz beginning of the year, then with the confidence and stability, knowing he's going to be the coach for the next X amount of years. I don't think they said, but I think it's probably at least 2. That means he can then employ a new strategy for getting Mouz to the top. And because I don't think that Brolan really contributed a lot. Like when I watch the communications of Mouz in the videos that they released, or ever at a tournament where they give some insight in those round sort of just like listen-ins, it always felt like xertioN was talking the most anyways. I even actually, funnily, watching the comms release at the PGL event, they released one round. Spinks was microing xertioN. Like, this team has always been a bit of a win by committee sort of IGLing duty, where now it's probably going to rest on the shoulders of xertioN primarily to call the strats. Spinks, who's still going to help out in those mid rounds as he's always done. Torzy in some aspects with calling his own shots on the op. And then if you have the aspect of JL chiming in too with some of the wisdom that he hopefully retained from playing with NaVi, I think that they have a chance to look better in mid rounds than they did before. Because I just always thought Brolin was not fragging hard enough to merit his spot as like a fragging IGL, and I also thought that he wasn't really talkative enough in mid rounds to merit his spot as an in-game leader. So then I kind of am left wondering, what does he even do here? And the answer, given the result immediately at Astana with this new look lineup that barely had time to practice, is nothing. Like, he didn't really actually, it doesn't really feel like he added anything to the team, because we already saw good mid rounds from them at I keep wanting to say Atlanta, but Astana. So it wasn't like crazy good ones, but there were a couple rounds, because I was trying to really note for myself, like, did this team just call good strategies out of spawn, in which case xertioN isn't really doing any mid rounding, or did they actually have some good mid rounds? And I would say it's not a lot of good mid rounds, but it was enough where I was thinking, okay, well, that's kind of what I've expected Brolin to do, if even that.
I've got two more angles for you as well. So one is, another reason why this isn't a short-term move for me is the player that they've promoted from the academy is a 17-year-old kid. Now, I'll give you this. It's true, he was a player I have heard that all the people I know who watch academy-level players say he's the one that you should obviously take. Like, he is a good player on their team. They say, look, he's not some, like, Monolith Donk character, but he's a good player, like, deserves to push up. Now, so with that said, I say that to say, by the way, because I didn't do this for people like Jacob, I'm going to give this guy a year. You don't have to, if you're 17 and you come into a top team,
the old Duncan year.
Yeah, you don't have to be good within 2 months, mate. You're 17 years old. You played an academy team. The difference with the Jacob one is he never had crazy hype around him. So I still don't know why they ever did that move in the first place. So as a result, I can't say to Zelex, you're supposed to win now like Mouse was the last 2 years. He's just started his career. I'm going to give him time to bed in, much as I did with Molodoi. You'll notice, actually, even though Molodoi had that down tick at the beginning of this year, I wasn't one of those people like, say he was fraud, kick him. It's like, mate, he only had like 6 months that he was good. Give him time. He's had his little peak, he's had his slump, and hasn't he sort of come back? So again, I'll give Zelex time, but that also makes it sound like now I'm writing off post of the year. And then the last one is just a detail, because I'll do a little bit of promotion of my own channel. On my channel, I've started a new show with that nerd guy off Twitter, Loz Reposa, that I've had on the shows a few times, because he's one of those people like Nero that does his own models, right? And one of the things he pointed out, it's actually a really valuable thing people don't notice, is basically Yimfa had almost the worst position on every single CT map. So when you take that player out, who the fuck's doing those spots? Like, I'll tell you what, there's no one player among the ones they've got now that you're chucking in those spots. So I do worry about that, because if anyone thinks of when Mouse was really good, a lot of their game was being really good on CT side. They had a very good, like, fragging team generally. And so that's just a concern for me, because I feel like, to me, it's not like it can't even work, Moses, but if it does, it's going to be a completely different Mouse than I've ever seen before. You've changed so many things in the team. And that's lastly also why I'm a bit annoyed at this approach. Because to me, I actually never really hated on Mouse. I did just think you were like one piece from the top. But now you've sort of like scrambled a whole bunch of things. You've changed the IGL, you've taken out this play, you brought in the 17. I don't know. For me, there's a lot of moving parts on this one.
I would be assessing Mouz if it was a completely new team, if they weren't bringing Brolin back for the major. Like, this is like a soft rebuild.
Agreed.
It's just like now it's just like here. And so
could put it this way, I know what you mean. Like, even though xertioN's still there, to me it's a different xertioN now, isn't it? You can't really count that as the same player. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a new player, new roles, new mentality, new everything that he has to deal with. So yeah, it's a weird one.
Yes.
So,
I'll tell you one last thing as well. If you're all going to tell me for years, it is true though, sadly, that xertioN's a bit of a choker. Bro, now my IGL is a star and a choker. Brother, I can't be IGL my star and the look. That's too much.
Wild, isn't it?
It's too much.
I mean, this is the thing. Like, imagine this team in like a 1-2 game in stage 3. Like, how much confidence are you gonna have with that pool of teams that we have, and with what we'll have seen from the teams from stage 2. It's like, okay, well, rock and roll. Let's see what we get. So yeah, well, I think they're just teetering on the edge, and I think the major is gonna dictate a lot.
Okay. Right. Okay. Maui, what is your bad point?
So, the Mongolz have obviously played some of CAC, and they got sent to the lower bracket. I was flying when this was happening, so I didn't really see it, but losing to Bait is never a good look. But I'll just speak on what they did and what I wanted to put as a good point, regardless of the fact, based off of their performance at Astana, because, man, this team is just, I mean, there's a handful of aspects to pick on for them. I mean, if I go for the wide view macro stuff, coming into a tournament, admitting that you had zero practice is crazy to me, especially a tournament of Astana's magnitude. Like, that's a tournament that you should think that you're a competitor at or a contender at. I mean, because I kind of actually thought at first is that, wow, that's kind of based. Like, they're probably not going to win the tournament anyways, and so they'll probably just make the playoffs, and then they'll crash out and lose to a Spirit or Falcons, as they were always going to do, even if they had practice. But then they don't even make the playoffs, and I think, actually, it's not based at all. You're actually just bad. You're actually just bad for doing this. And so, yeah, they crash out in 9th to 11th at that. In the group stage, they beat Magic and they beat G2, but they lost to Aurora, Falcons, and Spirit. So they're kind of the teams that I expected them to lose to, except for Aurora. Aurora is the one team where I got so mad watching the Mongolz play, where I just thought, oh, wow, it's pretty obvious this team did not work on anything, and they weren't even in form individually to play this tournament. Like, Cobra Zera was missing kills that he absolutely has to get to win rounds, and that he's set up to get. They were doing a cat or an A split on Mirage one time, and they didn't even throw any utility to short to cat. As they're coming up con, they have like a molly, they have flashes, and they just walk up con dry, and then you just get shot in the back in the most predictable way ever. And I'm just thinking, wow, this team, they need the reps. Like, they clearly need the reps of practicing in Europe, because if you just leave these guys to their own devices without practice, they just have, I mean, I think a lot of players are probably like this, including Vitality when they don't practice. But, you know, if you have guys that are out of their reps, they might be okay individually, but they don't operate like a team. And that is what is kind of setting me up for a Cologne where I am expecting really nothing from the Mongolz. I'm probably not going to have them as a team. I'll see how stage 3 breaks down when we get there, but I am probably not going to have them as a team to make it through stage 3. I think there's too much stiff opposition, and there's teams that practice and probably boot camp before the major. And I don't know if I can say the same about the Mongolz. So it feels like they're just kind of squandering the potential that this roster had. And I wouldn't be surprised if they are also just find themselves regretting greatly the kicking of Senzu.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say you're wrong on anything. My perspective on the Mongolz is more, we've been having the conversation. They've been telling us they haven't been practicing for events, I feel like, since like Cologne of last year. You know, they didn't practice for Cologne. They made the final. Didn't practice for EWC. They won the whole fucking thing. Plenty of events they haven't boot camped for. So for me, it's like, yeah, I want to be critical of it, but they're still, you know, when they're still placing well. I mean, look, let me rephrase that. I can be critical of them. I think it's silly. I think it's fucking stupid. But on the same hand, if you're going to be 5 players from Mongolia who are just like, we're good enough without practicing to be a top 10 team in the world, we get to fly around the world and make tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we get to come home and be celebrities, on some level, I feel like they've won the game. You know, like everything they've said in these interviews for me just says we don't really care about trying to establish greatness. We don't really care about trying to like leave a huge mark. They've already done a huge mark of being the first Asian team to reach number 1 in the world standings, to get to winning a trophy as well. Like they're the first team to have done that, but in terms of creating a deeper legacy within the game of Counter-Strike, it doesn't seem like that's interesting to them. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, I don't mind talking about you guys as like a solid top 10 team, and you're going to be able to pop off and you have some dangerous pieces. But if you're not practicing for like 70% of the events you go to, like, I don't know, okay, like, go fair. Is that might be the wrong fucking opinion to have, but it's just like, whatever. I don't care. It's your decision. It's just the way it is.
And that's frustrating because we all know who Genghis Khan is. He's like the most famous
Where's this angle going?
in the history of Mongolia. Nobody knows Kublai Khan. Nobody knows. If you ask anybody who the fuck is Kublai Khan, they have no clue who that guy is. Because he was the second most famous, and he didn't.
I see where you're going, right? Okay, I wouldn't.
And that's what the Mongols are doing right now. They're being the Kublais right now when they should be looking to be the Genghis.
There you go, Maui. That's way to fucking bring it home.
What's sad is, even though that was like just a weird historical point, it did hit harder than a lot of the CS-related points, didn't it? Like,
fucking nailed it.
You know, you killed it, okay. I will say, put it this way, I know what you mean. The real problem Mongols have is this. It's why I try not to hate on them. I thought they would be completely irrelevant when Senzu left. So I have to say, I still am somewhat impressed that they're sort of like a playoff gatekeeper now, who even do, like you say, man, we fuck around and make playoffs, even though they're very rarely ever going to win a series, and they can't beat any elite team, you'll notice. With that That said, as much as like that's higher than I would have expected, they do. The Kubla Khan point is on point because put it this way: now that we know what Mongolz did do with Senzu, they will always live in the shadow of that, bro. Like that was a team that could win tournaments. This team, unfortunately, like you say, it can make playoffs, but that's it. So there's not much more to look at in that sense. Also, I'll give you another reason it's not as cool as well. Because one of the things they always had in this team was, it was why they were amazing with Senzu. They were actually legitimately one of the best Mirage teams. They were unbelievable. Bro, they play Mirage infinity amounts. It's actually fallen off a lot. It's become a very middling map. So there's not even that cool thing of like, the one map specialist that if they get you on that one, that, in the same way as Aurora has the Anubis, etc. They don't even have that. And then also, actually, the Aurora deal is not a bad one, Maui. Mate, if there's ever a team that feigns like it's a top team and gives out upsets for free, it's Aurora. Like saying I did an upset at a tournament. Oh wow, who'd you beat? Aurora. What, you get a fucking toy in your Happy Meal as well, you fuck? No shit. Everyone gets that. So the idea they lose to Aurora consistently is actually a bit worrying, mate. So I'm with you. I actually think their problem is I don't even dislike them as a team. They're just kind of in the middle for me, and they don't have a lot of flair for me to get into, And part of me, low-key, still just feels like, bro, surely at some point in time, even if it's a year from now, surely Senzu just comes back. Surely eventually for both parties, it just seems silly what we're doing here. Like, again, I can't know this. Maybe he did do some shit, but is it really that bad that it's worth not being able to win tournaments? Come on, can't we just 6 months from now fix this and bring it back,
Well, I know for me, because on that vein, the next question I was going to ask was, does this change your perspective of his departure? Because when he left the team, right? The perspective I took was kind of like, okay, well, Senzu probably wants to be home a little bit more. They've already kind of like struggled staying away for so long and not boot camping, and that's part of that. And maybe the team did want to boot camp more, and Senzu didn't want to be part of that, and he wanted to be at home, so they couldn't. But now that they're still not boot camping, and he's joined BC Game, and I just casted him
Moses, I know what you mean.
I just casted him in Atlanta.
They were saying it was burnout or something, right? Along the lines of what you're saying, you could build that case if you were like, right, the reason it's burnout is, remember, 2 years ago, they used to be a team that barely made the playoffs. So if suddenly you're in every playoff and you're going deep every tournament, and you know what the tournament calendar is like, you have to accept the few. I could believe that. But then the idea of like, well, I'm too burned out. The last thing you'd then do is jump into teams where it's like, right, off to random lands in the middle of nowhere. Like, what? That's worse for burnout. I know what you mean. That doesn't float, does it, Mouz? I know.
As if you're going to go like in burnout mode, say, I want something nice and relaxing. Let me join BC Game with simple and electronic. Like, that's not going to work.
And bro, he's already gotten like 2 events in, and already we've had the video of simple. Like, I will kill you, motherfucker. Like, bro, it's only 2 events in. What are we doing? Like, at least wait like a month. Give him a month, simple. Come on, mate.
As a quick aside, though, I fucking love seeing that out of simple.
I know.
I love seeing that out of simple because that's how he's always been, and I want him to care, and I want him to be pissed. And when I see shit like that, on one hand I'm like, God damn it, simple, shape up, but I'm also like, fuck yeah, simple, like fucking get in there.
Yeah, I actually don't know what fans want. Imagine if instead, as they lose every single map, he just turned and went, it is okay, we will try again next time. That'd be even worse. That's even more whack. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, for my bad, I think this. I've also done this largely based on topical recent things. Bro, I know they're also not out of the tournament yet at the CAC. Bro, the peak of PARIVISION looks like it's been and gone. This is sad.
I know.
Like, if you saw them earlier in the year, I wasn't even a hater when they won that Blast Bounty. I was like, look, they should be like a playoff team each tournament at least, I don't think they'll win a tournament. That's probably over the... But you look at it, right? That team, unironically, with Zwei, just looks like it had a really cool honeymoon for a couple of months. They were so competitive against top teams as well, even the games they lost. Now you look in the last 2 tournaments, and holy fuck, has the floor dropped out of this game for these guys. Like, they can, no joke, lose to seemingly anyone in 3 maps. It has gotten crazy. And in fact, speaking of the simple thing, bro, before, I made this point to Maui, the reason you know that certain coaches get hated on and certain ones don't is because, bro, it was, if you were Sonic and you go, don't change your sensitivity, that's treated like a war crime, as though you're like the most abusive parent ever. If Dastan's like, hey, bitch, I will cut you, they're like, that silly old Dastan. They do things differently in Eastern Europe. Bro, it's suddenly getting a bit awkward now, isn't it? Where every single fucking tournament now, he's like, basically like, I would cut half you bitches if I didn't have to take you to the major. Like, holy fuck, bro, is that really like the pep talk we need to get things back? But I think it's valid though, because if you look in the game, a lot of their players also, they're falling off a cliff, mate. They're having a really hard time in these games. So I think there's frustration inside. The joke is, I think inside their camp, they also have the same frustrations I'm describing, bro.
I made like a month or two ago, a couple months ago, I made a comment on our podcast that I thought the issue that PARIVISION would eventually have is that these individuals who are performing so well would eventually get either the confidence or the ego to feel like that they're good enough to match up to the best players in the world without like the confines of the structure and the rules and the system that Dastan and Jaime want to have. And I don't know if that's the case, but I think that feels like the perspective Dastan is taking by his interview answers, right? Of being like, yeah, I'll kick their ass. I have to like, I don't want to cut them, but I'm gonna have to if they don't like follow the structure. Kind of like thinks he's giving out in interviews. So I feel like that's sort of the battle going on within that team, and I guess the players just aren't responding to it very well. But I think it's equally devastating to this team because this was one of those teams that no matter like, I would never say that they're better than Vitality, but it was one of the few teams who I've watched over the last like 6 months to a year make Vitality play really.
Oh, they give them a good game. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like and it was always the thing with Jaime back in the day. Even when I was coaching Liquid and playing against Jaime's teams, it wasn't anything crazy that they were doing. They just always made you feel really uncomfortable and never confident in your reads. And I thought that was such a useful tool to have against. I mean, it is a useful tool to have against everyone, but particularly against Vitality, since nobody can seem to match up with them man to man. So that seemed to be a way that they could even the playing field, and all of that's faded away. All of that's disappeared. So yeah, I don't know. I guess is your point about do you want to talk about PARIVISION or more about how Dastan is being perceived?
I mainly just mean that the bomber for me is that whatever peak they had where they looked like this kind of cool dark or put it this way, an obvious angle would be this. I actually thought of this from a positive thing. If you look at the top end of the scene right now, the season's sort of saved. Suddenly Falcons is cool. Spirit's actually online again. Maybe even Furia's half decent. Suddenly we're going to the major. NaVi's beating Vitality. You have all these reasons where the major suddenly got a lot less like predictable. But you wanted PARIVISION to be one of the names in there, and I don't think they're going to arrive at the major sadly as like dark horse potential anymore.
They're not having that same uptick right now, and it's felt like a while. I mean, they haven't been really at the top for too long, maybe like 6 months. I guess you could quote unquote say they popped off in Budapest to really get on everyone's radar. But I feel like through most of this year we've kind of been saying this team's really fucking cool. One roster change away from being something really dangerous. Kind of like let's figure out who it is. Yeah, and I guess now this is maybe the elements of that. Although maybe like the Dastan stuff is gasoline on the fire. I don't know, but like I guess this is the breaking point is going to be how they perform at the major. And they too are one of those teams that are either fortunate or misfortunate to start stage 3 of the major. So you get plenty of time off to prepare, and maybe they fucking need that, right? Maybe they need to get a break from all of each other and go home and deathmatch for like a fucking 2 weeks or something.
A couple things. I watched some of the PARIVISION at Astana, and the truth is that I'd also take the position, and I took it kind of early with Dastan of like how it's funny. It's great when a coach or anybody in the space can be genuine with us when we do a post-game interview, but there's a point where it also becomes
too genuine.
Too like genuine. I'd almost just say abusive, where it's just like you throw everybody on the bus, like every single time. Like, what if I finish a desk and I like get on my stream right after, or I do an interview with HLTV, and I'm like, man, Dust would not shut the fuck up, and I couldn't get my points out. Like I couldn't say anything, and I'm gonna say, Dust, if you keep doing that, then you're not gonna be working with me on any of these events. It's like, is he going to perform better or worse hearing this stuff? And I know that Western culture, Eastern European culture is a little bit different, but I think it just makes people a little bit cagey, and I think that actually can come out in their play. I think xertioN is one guy that we probably xertioN is one guy that we probably at the beginning were a little bit, I'd say, less critical of, because he's a support guy, he gets less resources, he plays some of the bad positions. This dude is extremely error prone. Okay, he was the first domino to fall in a lot of rounds for them at this event, where they're holding a setup, and then there's only one angle they can get flanked from. xertioN is the guy that's supposed to hold it, but he's looking at a redundant angle that other people are already looking at, and I'm like, oh. Yeah, that guy might need to go, because that just looks too stupid, and it happened multiple times at this event where I would say probably the first couple months after Bounty, I was thinking, man, that Noda guy really was a one-hit wonder with that grand final versus Falcons, because he started falling off, and I thought, okay, he'd be the guy to kick. After Astana, xertioN is definitely the guy that I would cut from this team. So I think that they could, and the thing I like about this PARIVISION team is that James worked with so many people who are still hanging around the space close enough that he could pick from these guys. So I think the future of PARIVISION is actually rather bright, because I would say that if you want a replacement for Nota, which I'd still be game for, you get Flit. I'm so game for getting Flit. I think he was actually still completely solid on Virtus Pro when that team was falling apart. I thought he was probably one of the only likable pieces. There was like a tournament where I was getting kind of mad at him, but for the most part, I've actually thought he's a very much so self-sustaining player. The other guy who has kept his name very much afloat, that's also a disciple of James, is Norbert on Hotu.
Oh, sure.
He's like the best guy on that team. He's the best guy on Hotu.
Bringing
They've been
Norbert
floating around.
back?
The
best esports player of all time?
Exactly.
Remember, Norbert one major, Nico 0 majors.
Exactly. Exactly. Let's get him back. Destroy Hotu. That team does not deserve to live any longer. PARIVISION must go on, and we need Norbert to do it. No, these are unironic moves that I actually
not
think
the
would
move.
be bangers for PARIVISION.
It's
Just the Norbert look.
No, of course. Because listen, like HLTV, it was bad enough when they did it with Cold Zero and Simple. It's when they do Norbert 1, Nico 0. It's like, oh, fuck you. Like, it's so whack, I know. Also, by the way, there's another two details to this. One is, here's also the problem Belchenok has, right? Here's how we know you're not a good player. Because your name is still fucking sick. It's just shit. Like,
I know.
What is Belchenok? That's nothing. So first of all, that sucks anyway. And then also, this is, by the way, unironically, I actually think you're also right, Maui. I think in a weird way, this is what's fucked up. Although I do also feel like I am doing that thing like, well, you know, his dinner wasn't ready on time. You know, he can get a bad temper. Like, we are just excusing like to start just wrecking people in a way we wouldn't accept any other call. But okay, we're going to pretend it's his approach, right? Here's what, in a weird way, he might be trying to actually communicate with these comments in interviews. Because quite literally, for logistic reasons, he can't remove players. He has to use this roster for the major. That might be his fucked up way of saying, like, get your game together, because we're probably gonna have to make moves after the major. Like, that's when we're gonna do the pivot naturally. So I'm sort of warning you. Like, I'm not doing the fucked up like kickstand thing. I'm just gonna remove you one day out of nowhere. I'm gonna give you a warning, right? You know, get your game together, because right now, otherwise, I'd probably consider a roster move. In a weird way, you could say that's a positive. The downside is, I don't think like this warning isn't gonna work. It's not gonna save these players. And you're probably right, Maui. After the major, they probably just have to bring a different player or two in. That's just the world we live in.
Let me say, for clarity's sake, that I actually like working with Dust. Okay, let me just put that out there.
It's the way he realised.
Back 3 minutes.
He realised like 10 seconds into that example, like, shit, why didn't I pick someone else who might not actually take this? But I should have said Yanko. Shit,
Who won't take it personally?
Exactly.
Someone who won't take it.
Because part of me was thinking, is this an abstract Maui? Because actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that would actually hurt Dust's feelings quite a lot. Yeah.
I know. I was like, well, this is not the best example to use.
In fact, even this example where you're hypothetically criticising him might also cross the line. So, okay, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Anyway, that was all the bad things. One thing that isn't bad is we have a sponsor for this episode, and it is Into the AM. I'm actually wearing one of their shirts now. This is just a plain tee. It doesn't have a design on. They have the plain ones where they have a bundle. It's around like $50 for 3. They have the print tees. If you've seen, I have like a pastoral one, like a Neo Tokyo one. They've got a million different designs. That's like $60 something for 3 of them. Also, of course, if you ever use the code intotheam.com/LFN, you always get 10% off, and it stacks against every other deal. So if you get a bundle deal and it was like $62, and you get the 10% off for the LFN thing. And because of they have a Memorial Day sale until the 31st of May, the end of this month, everything is up to 70% off on the website. So if you go to the different items, it's up to, but that code also stacks with that as well. So if you found an item that was 70% off and you did the intotheam.com/LFN, you technically get 80% off. So it's actually a really awesome deal. They've done this many, many times in the past. And genuinely, I actually do wear my Into the AM t-shirts. It's the stuff I chilling on a night. It's quite comfortable, as Maui's pointed out. It's got like an interesting blend of the fibers and stuff. It's pretty nice. I like them. Go to intotheam.com/LFN or click the link in the description to receive an additional 10% off on top of the sale discounts. You must use the link or you will not get the additional 10% off. Also, Into the AM ships to many countries worldwide for free, so be sure to stock up your summer wardrobe during this sale. Okay.
I mean,
Go on.
No, like actually, Into the AM's 100% cotton has become my go-to wear on long plane flight shirt.
Just really comfy and breathable, in it.
Heavyweight cotton's really good. I think they have other stuff too, yeah, with blends and everything like that. But the actual t-shirts are just like the 100% stuff is great. It's really good.
Oh God, they pass your
Nothing
purity
touches
test,
this skin
Maui.
but
I
silk,
know
baby.
exactly. Who's this fucking? He is Kubla Khan. I know exactly what the fuck's going on here. Anyway, let's move on. Now let's talk about good things in CS. Shall we? Flamed everyone. So what's good, Moses? What you liking at the moment?
Shit, what is good at the moment? What did I send to you? Oh, I sent you the this one. Yeah, this one's great. I think the good point, I think, and this shouldn't come as any kind of crazy surprise. My good point is I think the Vitality front office is the best front office in GMing we've ever seen. I think they've made some of the best moves that we've seen in terms of bringing this roster together. They were admittedly given a few layups here and there. The ROPS coming for free was nice and easy, but I think some of the decisions to let Apex develop as an IGL, don't take that one for granted. I think keeping Mezzi over Spinks, don't take that one for granted, especially at the time. But the reason why I kind of bring this up is because with all the conversation we've had recently about eras in Counter-Strike and comparing Vitality to the old Astralis, I think for me, there's things that Astralis did that I don't think Vitality can replicate in the same way. But I think from an organization perspective, Vitality's office can actually eclipse that Astralis era team as well, because this next step for them is going to be, can you age gracefully out of an era? Or can you continue and prolong an era, or is it going to end in a dumpster fire like the other ones? Like NIP 87-0 faded away, never being able to find a fifth. It took a while, and eventually they just dropped off a cliff, and NIP's never come back. Fnatic had their era. They've never come back from that. Olaf Meister got an injury. They kind of faded away, made roster changes. They've never even come fucking close from come back. There was a little bit of a JW era later on. But I think for Vitality to see what they're going to do next, I think I'm really curious to watch this, because I think they've done the best job of it, and I would like to see them fucking kill it. I'd like to see that. And I don't know what it's supposed to look like coming out of an era, but I would like to see this team find a way to move into a future where they replenish pieces as they go and still remain competitive, because I think you have the people to do it. Rops is a great role player. I think Mezzi feels like he's developing into a good leader. Flames is still young. I think you have pieces. Iwu's going to be there forever, but if you ever need to make a move, I feel like I have the confidence now in this organization that they're not going to drop off a cliff the way the other era organizations have in the past.
What's really impressive about Vitality is that a lot of the moves, or even some of the moves that were decently rated, ended up being extremely well rated in hindsight. And I would say that starting off with the future proofing of the team, going for Dupree instead of or Flamesy instead of Dupree. Yeah. I'd say that I did know at the time that happened. I'd say most pundits actually liked that move, because we all understood that Dupree sort of fell off in, I'd say, group stages or tournaments that were of lesser magnitude. But then for the big tournaments, he could still play pretty darn well. Not like he wasn't getting like EVPs or anything like that, or top 10 performances, but he was definitely he was doing his job, and that panned out incredibly well. Now Flamesy is probably vying with like being a top 2, top 3 entry fragger in the world. And then we look at the Mezzi move, and that was also one that was actually forced upon them, because I thought Falcons went in to steal Magisk, and it was actually Falcons who got the worst end of that, because Magisk ended up kind of just becoming washed. And then we saw Mezzi actually blossom into pretty much the star support player that he has now become. And then also the Spinks for Rops move is probably also a pretty, I mean, yeah, even though they got him for free in a way, I think that was actually not the easiest to deal with, because as we now know, there was inner turmoil with the team. Seemed like some people didn't really get along with Spinks all too well, and so they kind of wanted to go away from him. But we've heard about that stuff happening so many times in the past, where somebody's a bit of a head case, or they're difficult to work with, whatever characterization it is. Sometimes teams just bite the bullet. They play with that player even though the chemistry isn't necessarily there, because they're a fragger. Because let's remind people, 2025, or it was 2024, Spinks was higher rated on HLTV than Rops was. And in fact, Rops probably wouldn't even have been on the HLTV top 20 list if it weren't for one really good Shanghai major where he was carrying FaZe towards the end of the year. So that was a hard move for them to make. But all of these moves worked. And that's just, yeah, I mean, looking back, it's kind of it's one of the best strings of GMing I've seen from any organization in Counter-Strike, period.
By the way, I also agree on two ends of this as well. Even though they had some happenstance, like, for example, they got Zero into their team at the beginning, they got Robsar, as you say, almost for free from FaZe in a way that is almost like one of the crazy... By the way, that's also simultaneously one of the worst GM blunders ever on the other side. How do you let your star P score getting nothing back and go to a rival, one that you were even beating at that? So, but everything they've done outside of that, I agree. If you just look at their moves ever since the end of the rosters team, I mean, basically, 2024 only had the Clone Trophy, but they transitioned between a major winning team at the end of CSGO to this incredible roster without ever having really a massive dip. Like, they were never going out last place in tournaments. I agree. And also, the point you make, actually, of future-proofing is a really good point. As you said, every single org that had, like, the era, the best teams ever, they never came close later. Like, at best, you had, like, a competitive dark horse. You know, no one was ever actually number one again and really going and, like, winning. That's why, actually, this team, I agree, you could still do it. I even think if you look at the squad, for the GM himself, he has so many great pieces to work with. Think of this angle. First of all, you have two reasons to join the team. One is Apex. I'm pretty sure a lot of players now have a mad respect for his game. And then the other one's obviously Zemu, as seen by the Robsu. If you go and join with Zemu, you can have a fucking awesome game. He's even perceived as a superstar that isn't going to be super selfish and tear you out like a fucking simple type guy. Then you've even got the angle. If you're joining as a role player, say in the future they have to replace a Flames or a Mezzi. By the way, because Apex used to be an IGL and what they've done with Flames this year, could there be a better ad for entry fraggers come and join our team than this one? This looks like the dream job to be an entry fragger, and you get all the flashes. You have all the best players following you up. Like, it's just a fucking great team. Even the Mezzi angle, they gave that guy time. He wasn't the same player at the beginning. They gave him time to work through it. They even sided with him over Spinks, by the way, who was a fucking star player. Like, again, these are all great reasons to join team. And then lastly, the thing about their squad, as you've seen how they've managed this, like, era period, is they look like they have a fantastic winning culture too. They've even done things like chosen the right events to pull back a little bit on some of the prac for and not go as hard and not burn people out. And I think generally, yeah, I'm with you. They've managed it fabulously. I think all around, as an all-around team, like, what negative is there to it? So I'm with you. No matter what piece, in fact, I'll even give you the craziest angle of all. Obviously, we don't anticipate this, but let's say the worst thing ever happened to them, which would be that, like, at the end of his contract, Zero leaves. Bro, if you had this similar type of a core, if I'm any other superstar player, Monacy, whoever, mate, give me his spot. I'll be fucking straight into that team. Give me the exact same squad and let me win all the championships. I actually think you're right. Almost any player they lose, they could replace.
I think one of the most important things, and I feel bad that Maui brought it up and I didn't hit it very hard, was the future-proofing one too. So thanks for that, because I know, like, one thing with the old Astralis era lineup is, remember how much we criticized them over the years, like towards the end of COVID, of being like, what are y'all doing? Copenhagen Flames is right there.
Yeah.
They're actually, you know, their players are looking cool.
Heroic guys.
Yeah, is now exactly overtaking you within Denmark, and they're looking pretty. You don't want any of them? None of them. None of them are interesting to you. I mean, even I don't know. Like, I guess maybe there was just some misreads there. I don't want to go too deep into the Danish side of things, but yeah, that seems to be a very difficult thing, and it is a very difficult thing, especially for an inexperienced industry, and people are going to be inexperienced in those GM kind of roles. But understanding when it's time to let go of someone who's done a lot of great work for you and good work for you, like, no other team has done it as well as Vitality has. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the future of this lineup. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there's going to have to be a point where this team kind of drops off, and I don't know what's going to be the cause of it. Maybe frustration of no longer being the best team in the world, that players just can't handle it anymore. But I'm interested to see how the organization handles it, because I think they might be the best example of what to do.
Right. Your point now, Maui. What's your good point?
The way that Spirit played at Astana was extremely notable. This is the best they've ever looked. Like, flat out, this is the best that Spirit has ever looked in any. Even I'd say that this is better as a team than even Spirit Shanghai. This is night and day. A team that has revamped their strategies. They have gone way harder into making sure that utility is efficient. I'll say, like, in practically every T-side gun round, Donk gets a free kill. And that I mean that because I say that because Donk, one of the reasons that he's so incredible is that dude was entry fragging through opponent's utility so frequently. When the other team's throwing good nades, he's running in, dodging a flash, still hitting 1-2 headshots on opposing players. It was never really Spirit setting them up. That was actually one of the worst angles that ZywOo fans slash Donk haters took last year was that Donk's always being set up. If you looked at the stats on who's getting the most flash assisted kills, Donk was not that guy. This tournament, if you look at Astana's flash assist stats, Spirit had more flash assists in this tournament than Vitality per round last year. And Vitality was the best at utility last year. So Spirit's utility damage and their flash assists would have been better than Vitality's 2025 as a whole. That's how good and how much they've improved. And for reference, how much of a jump that is, of all top 20 teams last year on HLTV, flash assists were lowest for Spirit. They were the worst flash assisting team and one of the worst utility damage teams. And now they've become, well, second best at utility damage at this tournament, but number one at flash assists. And that is insane. Like that's just, that to me is just saying, like, there's a couple different narratives I can pick at for that one, but just opening it up like that is just, Spirit's team play is just on another level right now. And it's going to be really exciting to watch them at the major because teams are going to have to anti-strat this team. Whereas before, all you're thinking about is how do you beat Donk or how do you avoid Donk? But now Donk has all of the assistance that he should have to win a tournament. And that's why they were so flawless at Astana. Like, again, like, I mean, playoff run, they didn't drop a single map. This was just an incredible run from Spirit. And Donk in the post-game interview when he won it was kind of saying, like, he didn't even feel like he had to change anything. It was just that his team, he didn't say this last part, but it was just that his team fixed a lot of things on their end, and then it just made him better.
I can't speak to a lot of how Spirit played at Astana just because I was doing Atlanta, so I actually haven't watched them. So that's my homework next week leading into the major. But I will say, I mean, I guess the big thing that I was kind of trying to keep my eye on just statistically with box scores was the Magic's comments on Tanir that he had a while back. He had like some interview where he said something, maybe not crazy, but he was like, he was kind of like, that's the guy we need to improve the most. So I don't know. I feel like this team has a lot of pieces that can make this team very, very cool. And I'm just happy at the moment, without having done any research and can't speak to any detail, I'm happy that this team looks like they can potentially be a contender at the major because we need more of those. And that's really all I can say on the topic at the moment. I apologize.
No, it's all good. By the way,
it's understandable you're at a different event.
I will say, I do agree with Maui. It wasn't just that, like, they won the tournament and people's stats were good. They also just looked really good. Like, they looked like a real team that was cohesive instead of a bunch of individuals. I agree as well, right? If you were to tick off all the check boxes that people wanted from this lineup, they're finally all coming online. One, Donk is as good as he ever was. He was fucking amazing at this tournament. Secondly, Tanir did look like the player that was added. Remember, it was actually on this show, we made this point ages ago. We didn't just want Tanir to join because Donk needs a 1.2 rating teammate or whatever. We even said, Maui, the whole thing is, the reason that move was genius is because on Heroic, he was like a late round impact rifler, which is what they obviously lack because Donk's usually dead by that point in the round. And he was doing it at this tournament. Like, it's not just the stats. Stylistically, it looks like the last two events, they have let him off the leash and he is doing exactly that style. And it makes the Spirit so much more dangerous. And then also, I'll just throw this in there. I actually do think that if you look at this little run they've had now, this is why I actually do think the whole like Magic's IGL thing, it won't end up being that big a deal. It looks fine. It looked like no one ever praised their strats when they had Chopper anyway. It looks like that aspect has been a side grade. It wasn't a bad move. It was fine. And then also, I'll just throw this in there. Since the other reason why I think this move got like actually mildly hated on when they made the Tanir move is because remember, it was right after the period where they'd sold Keisuke to Falcons. And all those fans were like, why wouldn't you just put Keisuke and Donk together? Because even though they're not the same player, they're both like early round impact players. You already have the best impact player in that regard. So actually, Tanir does bring a different quality Keisuke wouldn't have brought in this team. So low-key, I actually think this last couple of events has saved the Spirit narrative for the major. Like I say, I think going into the major, everyone's kind of hyped for them now, bro. Like, they really are maybe a dark horse. And all you ever want if you have a Donk team is just give him a chance to win the game, bro. If he has a chance to win the game and frag out, then anything's possible, right?
I guess here's my contribution to this particular segment of the show would be, where do we all fall on the whole Hallie debate? because I feel like that's kind of
There's
the big
actually something
story
coming later on that. I've got a point on that later. So let's say
Okay.
that. Let's
All
put a pin
right.
in it.
Well,
It's all good.
Okay,
Spoiler.
I was gonna hit on that, but I'm glad you said that because that was
Don't worry. Spoiler. That's it. That's in the ugly section.
Gee,
so don't worry
which
about
point
that.
is left, Duncan? No,
Exactly.
ugly, you say? Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, that's in the ugly one. Here's the thing. My point now,
we'll wrap that up.
my point for good, though, is I think it's just a perfect time to do this. Actually, this will help Moses as he watched IEM Atlanta. Bro, I have always said, I think one of the most overhated pros of the last few years is Wonderful from NaVi. Because even though I get it, a bit like Shiro, they're not Ziwu and Monesi, and they never will be, by the way. They're never going to be that sort of player that, like, give me the ball, they make all the shots. They're like, no. They're just AWPers who are good AWPers, in this case, elite AWPers. And in their teams, they both have their own flaws. But here's the difference. Whereas Shiro still does do that thing where he probably will choke in a semi or not give you the contribution you want in the final. Mate, Wonderful, the last few events looks way better. Like,
great.
he already was good last year, but he started the year with a bit of a slump. I think these last few events, first of all, he's looked awesome against Vitality specifically. Like, he's hitting all his shots, he wins clutches, he's actually got a half-decent rifle. Like, the guy just looks like actually his game's really good right now.
I feel like the two oppers come to that like similar kind of playstyle philosophy, but from different angles to it, right? I feel like Shiro, that's more like his natural world as an opper he likes to live in. I think Wonderful probably had a little bit more of like flashy, simple Monesi elements to him, but under Blade's tutelage, you have to really like figure out when you get to bust that out, like when is the appropriate time. So I think he's kind of been having to figure out like where's my sense of freedom within what Blade wants me to do and what my responsibilities are. And Shiro's just kind of like, this is how I like to live, you know. Like I think it's just two different angles they come at it with.
But put it this way, bearing in mind people used to want this guy replaced. First of all, there's no one that you sign that's replacing this guy. And as you're saying, Moses, he fits their system. Like he looks really awesome in their team.
And it takes a while. Like I can understand the growth and the inconsistency and the struggles from Wonderful because it takes a while for a lot of people to like recognize like when like there is a lot of Blade's system always feels to me like the fucking Jocko Willink quote where he's just what is it? You have like freedom through discipline or something like that. Along those lines, I'm paraphrasing. I don't actually listen or read a lot of Jocko Willink, but it's something along those lines where like just like the structure and like discipline that you put in your daily life gives you the freedom that you need. And I feel like that's Blade in a nutshell of like, this is how I want you to play Counter-Strike. This is your responsibility. This is how you react. But in those moments and how you react and how you take on this responsibility, that's where you get to have the individual flair to it. And I think Wonderful is just kind of coming to grips with that a little bit.
How dare you reference Jocko Willink if you're not even into it? You were like veering into the Joe Rogan. You were veering into the Joe Rogan laugh and skit at that point. Like, hey Jocko, like, what are you up to, man? Like
man, it's like fortune cookie wisdom. I just fucking it's just like a cool little quote to throw on the wall.
We need Semler on to actually say the real quote right now. Just,
Maui's out here making grand points. Like, remember Genghis versus Kublai Khan? Moses is like, as the great Jocko Willink once said. Like it's Confucius as well. I love it. Okay.
Hey, it's the life I lead, man.
Okay. It's on brand. I'll give you that. It's on brand.
Watching Wonderful over the course of time he's been with NaVi, I'd say 2024 was really weird because it almost was like if you took any given day, there was a good chance on that given match that Wonderful is a top 1 or 2 rated player for them in it, but he just never won those MVPs. Yep. So now to see him put a whole tournament together where he is the best and also the most impactful person in a defeat over Vitality, I'm glad that he was able to wrap this one up because in Budapest, in the group stage, in the Swiss of stage 3, there was a series. I mean, NaVi played Vitality, and I remember so vividly how amazing Wonderful looked in that one, where he was playing well within the system, but he was just finding these little gaps and moments where he could just break the mold, push a little bit farther, decide to go for a little bit of an X factor swing. And that's when I thought, oh, okay, like in rating alone, and in terms of what I saw in that one, he was the best player on the server with the era-defining Vitality, who ended up winning the major, with his own teammates who were still very good at that time. And I was hoping to see more of that. And that's not what we got for the first 3 months of 2026. It did feel like he regressed. It was very strange. It was like he kind of lost the confidence that he built through the course of the year. And it's almost like this guy plays himself into mental shape. Like he starts, his mechanics and his skill is always fine, but then it's almost like he has to play almost like 2/3 of a season and then you get the best version of him. I wonder if there's actually any kind of like numbers to back this up, where it just feels like he always has a little bit of a slow start and then it kind of comes together as he gets more used to the system that he's playing within. And I think that's kind of what we're getting right now, that we're getting him a little bit earlier than last season, where he's ramped up, where his op is insane. Like, if you're talking about guys for how quick they can flick and hit like really hard shots, I would consider him pretty much not in the same breath as Monacy, because he's in his own category, but he's pretty damn, he's in the next tier, and it's very rarefied air for me. The other thing about him that is always going to be relevant, and it's so important in CS2, is his rifle is always good.
It is.
And his rifle has just never been bad. And that's something I cannot say about Molidoy. Something I cannot say about Torzi. It's something I definitely say about Monacy and Zywoo. So that's what keeps him in the conversation for being a relevant player, even when he doesn't get the economy to get an op in his hand for 6 or 7 rounds and a half. So I think he's extremely good. He just needs to like feeling out those moments when he can actually have a little bit of agency is probably not the easiest thing to do in a Blade system. But I'm glad to see him find that at Atlanta.
By the way, one thing you're saying that's also very fair, I do think, is obviously the best year for NaVi was 2024. That actually wasn't his best year. I think he's gotten better since then. So, one, I can understand in that team why people criticise him. Think about it, if you're the AWPer, but then everyone else wins the MVPs, that would make a fan think, is our AWPer just not that good or something? But I'm glad they stuck with it, because I do think now he's sort of like, come on, and then it's actually cool to just won his first MVP. He actually is a really good player now. Yeah,
I think, there was actually a time when I remember people were actually talking about Wonderful being on the outs of the team, and I was always like, he's 21 years old. Or like, actually, maybe at the time of that conversation, he was 20. And I was just thinking, like, you give a guy a pass when he's that age, even if, like, I don't, when players enter the scene, I give people like different amounts of leeway depending on a couple different factors. One, if it's their first year in tier 1, even if they're older, I'd say their first year in tier 1 still will explain a lot to me, and I don't think that they're hard capped from the moment they get there. Let's say like Roy, for example. I think he was like 26 when he first got on a tier 1. Yeah, he was kind of on the older side. I'm not going to judge him necessarily by that year, because I think that he's going to probably get better, and it's more about the amount of time he puts in at tier 1. And then because he's older, he'll probably hit his cap a little bit earlier. But for a player that's in their late teens or their early 20s, I'm probably going to give them until they're 23 or 24 before I'm like really out on them or say that they've capped out.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm trying to find the name of that Brazilian player who stood in for MIBR when he was a rookie.
Oh,
Honda?
Was that the one?
Was that it?
Or was it? Wait, that was Furia, actually.
Was it Furia? I just thought it was funny. Because you were
Kai.
like, well, I'm not. Yeah, Kai.
By the way, the reason he's saying it, obviously, Maui, is because, like, from day one, this guy took a breath in a Fury outfit. You were like, cut this fraudulent bitch. Like, it's true. You gave that guy no quarter whatsoever.
But
that was an eye test thing.
Okay,
that was an eye test thing. The eye test was horrendous for him. It's still horrendous for him.
Even so, though, it's the idea you're like,
on flux.
Listen, Maui, you were totally right as well. And spiritually was fine. But it's the idea you're like, well, now listen, let's not get hasty. Let's just watch this guy. He looks at the screen once. This guy's trash. Get him on this. I love it. Okay, the dichotomy of Bowie. Okay, I like it.
The thing about Kai also is that people were trying to say no, he has a lot of potential because he's #1 face it in Brazil. But I'm always told in Brazil they don't play face it.
Okay.
Like they don't play face it. They don't play face it in Brazil. They play some other like gamers club. So what's the point of telling me that he plays good face it in?
By the way,
don't use the platform.
Okay, I appreciate that you are just full haterism. You're not only just like it not only didn't work, you have no potential, sir. You will never be anything. Like you actually judged his entire life, bro. Like he may as well just quit at this point. Like you've done him completely.
What a world. To one major. He did make it to one major.
True. Look, I was actually mostly just making a joke. I'm with Maui. There's like a certain level of eye test you have to hit to get the grace period. You know, like at some point it's just like you either kind of you're almost there or you don't belong here at all. And like that one was clearly a fish out of water, let's say.
Well,
you want to know something crazy?
Go on.
Wonderful is 2 months younger than Kai.
That is insane.
Redemption. Fucking redemption.
Yeah. That's that. There you go. There you go.
That actually is kind of crazy.
Okay. The last category is obviously the ugly. So Moses, what is ugly right now?
Man, I hate this one. I was trying to think of a new one the whole way home from running my errands. My ugly one is just the. And I'm sorry. They're like this is boring. This is fucking lazy. NA teams all suck. I just like, but like I think the main point about it is that they've all gotten like worse. I think the reason why it struck me a little bit was when we went into Atlanta and watched a bunch of them play. NRG was there. We were just kind of like, M80's gotten worse. NRG brings in Grimm's, supposed to be more firepower. Yep. They've gotten worse. OC had that hot start to the year. Doesn't really matter. They gotten worse. Liquid, I don't even want to talk about what they looked like in Atlanta, but they've gotten worse. So, and they're not even practicing in NA. It's just the players.
Yeah, true.
So I mean, it's got to be like I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to like. I don't want to cast aspersions on any of them because I'm sure all those guys are out there working hard, and it's not easy to grind when you're on the road away from friends and family. Blah blah blah. But at the same time, what the fuck are we doing out here? How is there zero step forward? How is there zero improvement? And like that, it's just it frustrates me a lot, obviously. And I don't really have a conversation to build off because I think everything's already been said. I'm just like constantly struck by how amazing it is that there's no improvement. M80 got from Frag 20 on April 25th to 26th, they got 5th to 8th behind NRG, Lag, Marsborn, Passion, Fisher College, and Wildcard. At Rock Journey Spring 2026, they got 5th to 8th behind Metasport, Johnny Speeds, Heroic Academy, Eyeballers, Alliance. So like I don't know. They've just all gotten worse. They're all bad. They're all bad, and there's no bright spot. There's no hope. It's all over. Pack it in.
Okay, they've all been kind. The entire region's been kind. It's over.
Yeah. The Kai treatment to an entire continent.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know where to go with it. I have no details. I have no explanation. They just all gotten worse.
I'm just gonna spin this in a way that it's actually legitimately so impressive still to this day what Fallen did from the Brazilian region to bring in a team that also probably was getting subpar practice and then to have them be world elite through the style that they played, the theory that they had, because like people act like, oh, just play well all the time no matter what. That's just real. I mean, that's extremely hard to do. I don't know if anybody. I'm trying to even think of a good enough analogy for this, but it's just okay. It's like this. Actually, it's completely like this. If you are, let's just say, 6 feet tall, and forever you've always been the tallest guy you've played with. And then you played basketball with your friends who were shorter than you. You could be a center, and you could just have a weirdly good post game that doesn't really, but then as soon as you play people that are taller than you and also have that capability, then those moves that you have, which worked on your 5 foot whatever friends, are not going to be as effective.
Yes.
And they didn't, that 6 foot tall guy who really, if he gets to the big league, should become more of a guard. He probably should have developed his 3-point shot, his dribbling, his passing, basketball IQ. But if all he did his entire life was just do this one thing that always worked for him, I'm not really gonna blame him because that's just what he did. That's what he did, and that's what always got him to win. He wasn't theorizing, how do I win on the NBA level at my height? Because I'm never playing NBA players. But then you throw him in with other guys that are his height and taller, and all of his skills are just, they're null. Maybe he has some aspect to his game that's a little bit cheeky to it, but that's kind of what NA teams have. And the longer that they practice in North America with subpar training, and I just put less and less blame on them because I think you're a product of your environment oftentimes, and that's what NA teams are. Because the crazy thing is though that Moses, you brought up that they didn't even win Fragadelphia. That for NRG, that's bad. That is admittedly bad. I don't even know what the excuse would be for them there.
It's just weird, isn't it?
I would relate this whole thing to FlyQuest. You drop FlyQuest in a European tournament right now, and they're going to get completely smashed because they've just been holding on to their VRS ranking, battering Asia and Australian teams, but because they know that it's going to get them their sticker money, but it's actually leading to them atrophying, like like an astronaut in space. It's just like they come back down to Earth and their muscles barely work because they have not been using them whatsoever. They've been getting around space just fine, but European CS is a different
low gravity
place.
environment. Yeah, Mars out there and shit.
Yeah, we got 1G here on this planet, Europe, by the way.
By the way,
Mars have more gravity? I might have been wrong
I'd assume
on that
it's
one.
more. I would guess more, yeah.
1G is Earth. That's one gravity. Yeah.
By the way,
Summit.
it's also, where Summit dies in a fight. Funny enough, he tries to make the conditions of Earth like Mars, where you would just die in fire and flames if it's too hot for you. So, bizarrely, he thinks 1G isn't Earth atmosphere. That's its problem anyway. But enough about Summit and his inability to understand astrophysics.
And outer space.
Exactly.
Enough about outer space.
Yeah, which isn't even real anyway, so why you bring it up? Get the CIA psyops off my show. Anyway, no, actually, by the way, as a random aside, I will actually tell you a detail about that makes the point for you, Maui. When I watch basketball, I've watched a lot of basketball in my life. Obviously, you watch from that like 3/4 top-down angle because it used to be at the back of a basketball arena. Obviously, like sort of where you can see like above the rim, but the players are all looking smart. Right? Famously, right? If you watch the NBA, everyone knows the player Allen Iverson. When you watch the NBA, you're like, oh, look at the little dude. He's pretty good. He's 6 foot tall. If you don't know, by the way. He's my height. So the joke is, to me, I think of him as like some Hobbit figure. He would be my height. But that's the scale. That would be off. Yeah, you're right. If he was playing an hour pickup game, mate, the joke is he'd be the tallest person there. That's what's ridiculous. So anyway, the reason why I also think that's a valid point is because if you go and you look at the teams that we're talking about now, if you just run through them all, you are just right. Like, first of all, the M81 is a bomber because they kept the same set of players together. And I would say that last year they'd even plateaued. If anything, the players they added not that long ago, like that JPA guy was supposed to be one of the hopes of the future. He's sort of withered on the vine, mate. He hasn't done very well, unfortunately. Like, he's had plenty of chances now, but he hasn't been able to go to the next level. Then you go and look. NRG, I agree, is the biggest bomber of all. Mate, Grim, in his career, has proven, as long as he doesn't have Elige or Twist next to him, he can actually be a pretty good fucking player for an NA player. He's got some real talent. So when I looked at NRG, I was like, isn't the one thing they're missing a star rifler? Bro, this is just what the doctor ordered. This NRG actually looked like, because they had Nitro, like, look at this, decent structure. Like, they're trying to play real CS. And with their old roster before Grim, they would get the odd upset. They would get in a 3-game series against someone. They would take a map claw. So you would think, I agree, Grim just seemed like a slam dunk upgrade. The team's going to be better. They're almost the same results. It doesn't look like it's moved the needle at all.
Yeah.
And then the last one, and I'm going to make a key point here, is this. Here's where the whole like, haha, we're Liquid, we can always go back to NA. Here's the indictment of you, Team Liquid. You are actually now an NA America's team. That's why you're in the major. You're not even clear cut the #1 America's team, for fuck's sake. With all those names, like back in the day, we even used to say it was almost fake to call it an American team when it had American players because it was so much better. Right now, they're in the mix with NRG and M80, mate. If you dropped all three of these teams in LAN tomorrow, would Liquid even win it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
I don't
either.
know, mate.
I don't know either, but I would actually say that's more of an indictment of M80 and NRG. I think it's interesting that you took the angle that it was an indictment on Liquid, because I would go the other way. I'd say I feel like these orgs have probably taken a little bit of like because I think on some level there's still a sense that Liquid is like an NA org and should like have the claim to like. I think there's some sense that the NA fan base still kind of by default cheers for Liquid as long as they have some NA players, even if they're not within the NA region through VRS. So I feel like when they came back, I feel like the other orgs had to have taken it, and other fan bases and other players had to have taken a little bit of an insult that they kind of get to come back in with Mouz and kind of take a spot. But it's like, what the fuck have you guys been doing?
Yeah, true. I've got a question, Mouz. Let me flip it back.
What have you guys been up to?
Since, as you said, this is like a topic that's been done a lot, but we don't really have any solutions right now. Let me ask you this question, though. And I actually don't know the answer to it. I want to see what you guys both think. You both NA people, right? If we actually took all of those teams, though, and said, right, fuck these squads, we're essentially like the pick-up basketball, we're doing it over, right, new team. Could you make out of the 3 teams there, could you make a really good lineup, do you think? Is there a team out
Liquid,
there?
Liquid, M80, and NRG?
Yeah, could you sort of forge a good 5-man lineup?
Could I use Passion UA also?
In theory. As long as you end up with 3 NA players overall.
He wants JT.
Yeah,
I just want JT. I do want
He just wants JT.
And by the way, JT, you know what? At the moment, it's actually a really sort of spicy political topic, you know, who gets citizenship in America. You can just have it, bro. If you want the green card, like, we will all fucking co-sign it.
Come get it.
We need you to be an American IGL at this point in time, boys.
I'll
Please come to America. Exactly. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never looked into it, but I think it would be impossible to not create one team out of 5 players from those 4 squads that would be better than.
I also feel like that because I also feel like each team has almost like 1 or 2 players I would use, but they're all set.
Also, I want Kvem. I want Kvem.
Okay.
We'll get JT, Kvem, and 3 other players.
Ooh, then we have to have 3 North Americans.
Also, that also.
I'm not making a joke. That was more me saying I actually really like watching Kvem.
By the way,
I see a little bit more rough around the edges, but dude's a pure fragger.
Even though I agree, by the way, he's actually an underrated player. He seemed pretty decent ever since he joined that team. There's nothing wrong with him. He also is still slightly in the Belcherot category, though. That is a weird name. Like, Mouz is even saying that, Maui. Sounds like he's doing some weird, like, commercial when he's, like, working with some other company. Like, he's doing some commercial for, like, you know, Swedish yogurt or something. Like, I like Kvem. Kvem. Try the new Kvem. Like, it's just so weird. There's something off about that name. I know.
Just a dystopian commercial. I mean, I think we could easily do it. It's just I don't know.
By the way, Moses, even though on the one hand you gave us hope there, you both collectively were like, well, can I have a South African and a Ukrainian player at least? Like, fucking hell. I'm supposed to be making a 5-man NA lineup. Like, whatever. NA is good at NA. It's all good.
I mean, we could make a good 5-man NA lineup.
Yeah, you could. If you want to make it all North American, you could actually make a pretty decent roster. I'd say Nitro has to be your IGL.
Okay.
Then you're probably, even though Elige has had a dip in a form and it's kind of been a conversation topic, I'm probably still taking him over. Well, maybe that's the problem with NA is that I would still take
maybe
Elige
this is
over
a
Lake,
separate episode, Maui.
But I think Lake. I should want to take Lake because I should be aspiring towards the future. But can I really do that? Like, okay, so if I did though,
you made a lot of questionable decisions already. I think.
Even Nitro.
And you have to realise, Moses isn't with you on this one, because Moses is like, listen, Elige, you remember what they say, the people you meet on the way up are the people you meet on the way down. Well, now it's time to stick the boots in, motherfucker. Exactly. Yeah. Who's doing the kicking from the team now, Elige? You ain't on 19, bro. Exactly. So you waited 5 years for that. Okay, fair enough. All right, okay.
The O2 will send their regards.
Exactly. Listen, it's a dish best served cold. Exactly.
This is just way too tough, really looking at it. Like, I'm actually picking...
Making the roles work is the tricky part, too.
Yeah, and why am I actually considering Swisher? Like, Swisher's uptick has been crazy this year. I didn't even...
He's the best rated player, I believe, right?
But that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I think Swisher, even without the uptick, you'd want him as like a glue guy because NA sucks at those.
Yeah.
We all are like mentally damaged and ego and narcissistic and don't know what we're talking about, but believe we do. So you want Swisher in there because he's a pretty level-headed dude. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
That's why I want him in that team, and he can shoot.
Yeah, I think he's a good locker room guy.
Yeah,
and obviously you could reunite him with his boy Malbs, who's been loyal.
There we go.
In one sense,
now we're cooking with gas.
To some degree.
We'll avoid the obvious low-hanging fruit there. That I always try to. But okay, let's move on. Maui, what is your ugly point?
Oh, okay. Mine's really quick.
This better be something interesting with this because this looked absurd written on paper. So go on, hit me with it. What is your ugly point?
This is just a super quick one. It was in a recent Valve update that they made it. There was okay, so if people weren't watching Astana, there was one great highlight where Magic, the Russian team that made it to the playoffs, used a 4-man overpass boost with an a saved op, and they got 2 kills.
It was from like the bathroom side, but you could still like see over, almost like the Olaf boost into the.
It was like Olaf boost's perspective. Yeah, it was very similar to the Olaf.
It's a unique boost, though. No one's ever seen it though.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I don't even know if I've seen it. I literally don't know if I've seen that on Reddit. Like, yeah. So it was really like a cool pocket play. We saw at Rotterdam, I think it was, Vitali brought out a 3-man boost on Anubis that got Zywoo a pick early on in a round, and it was in a group stage game. Funnily, I don't even think he used it in the arena. And Valve in not the most recent update, but one update before that, they took out 3-man boosts. They took out they made it so that you're no longer. Yeah, they took it out. It's completely out of the game.
Somehow you just can't stand on the second guy's head somehow.
You can't shoot. Your accuracy.
Gives you an accuracy as like you're on a ladder.
Oh, that's how they've done it, right? Okay.
Yes.
It seems bizarre to do that, like, 12 years after the all-off boost, though. Like, you're a bit late on that fix, aren't you? What? Like...
And also, why are you doing it right before the major? Like, this might have actually been, based off of seeing a couple of pretty cool boosts in the last couple of months, I would have wanted to see that at Cologne. I don't see any... personally, I see zero reason this should be out of the game. I see zero reason. Like, I get the aspect of it being like, oh, like that's kind of like you could see over it, unless they have spotted on one map that you can do a game-breaking see over the map through walls.
Yes.
Then, but that's not anything I've seen. I mean, I haven't seen in the 2 instances of this happening with Magic and with Vitality. These were legit boosts where you could just see through a part of the map that has always been open. They're not clipping through anything. They're not seeing through some texture that they're not supposed to see. They're standing in a position just higher than you're supposed to, and then they're getting 1 to 2 kills with it that otherwise wouldn't be presented. And I just think that I personally just think that this sucks. This is a move from Valve that is almost like shoring up. It's like okay, back to future proofing. It's future proofing map design that overlooked a 3-man boost, which I think has a place in the game, because I'd say there's been some pretty common ones actually on Overpass also. Like if you remember boosting around Graffiti and then you peek into the short water tunnel area, that's a 3-man boost that people would use. Like that's one of the only instances that it had any regular efficacy in tier 1 play. And now that's gone too. I just think that this is sort of a needless change that I just can't even wrap my head around it, really. I really can't.
I don't care for all the reasons that you just said. There's only one efficient boost for it in the professional scene, and I think even professional teams probably going to say that many players, that's too many resources allocated to one area for it. You know, that's why there's only one, is because it's so many of your resources in a round dedicated to one location for X amount of time that players don't use it. So, I mean, I don't really care, to be honest with you. I would say if I took the angle of if I tried to get into the mind of a Valve dev, I think the part of the logic would end up being, and next time I see him, maybe they'll tell me I'm an idiot. I think part of the logic would be it's not triple boosts aren't something that the average person can just like coordinate and pull off with a teammate in a game of matchmaking, because you need people on like TeamSpeak. Like you can't just jump in a random game. If I ping one guy and say, hey, boost me here, that motherfucker's going to jump on the sandbag and boost me. But if I ping someone and then pick a second guy and try to orchestrate in the matchmaking game, the odds of that third person paying attention are like slim to none. So if I had to guess, and I'm with you, that is the only reason I could see them. Like when I say I don't care, it means I don't care which way it would have gone. I don't care if it was in the game. I don't care if it's not. So I think that's the only use case I could see for them saying, let's make sure triple boosting is just dumb. Is just like not worth it in any way. That would be.
I think Maui did the right thing by putting it in ugly, though. It isn't directly just bad. Like, it's not the end of the world, is it? At the same time, though, I know what you mean, Maui. I did like the idea that, like, again, this isn't something that was even being abused. These 2 instances you gave were pulled out one time in, I think, the whole tournament by that team. It wasn't even like the problem with it, people always forget this because of the all-off boost. The problem with the all-off boost is he did it every single round and it worked every single round. That was the issue. It was super broken. And as you pointed out, that particular case, even though this wasn't what the boost was for, it turned out looked at some pixels that you weren't supposed to see on the map. There was sort of like some background detail that in theory in a different context could be used for cheating, but not that case. So that was like a really specialized extreme case that's never existed since. I do actually like the idea that as the odd random thing like that Vitality one, you can just pull out this one boost you tried to see if for one round it gets a cheeky pick. That one on the Nubis, if you remember, was even so it could look out that big window like it was part of the map even. That wasn't even that bad. So I did think that was cool. True, it wasn't used very often, but I'm with you. Like here's the thing. To me, it's like, why not just leave it in the game? Was it really that big a deal? Surely every now and then it's cool.
It's very fair.
Like I say, it's not like you can even say we're doing it because we don't want the Olafmeister thing to happen. That was 12 years ago in a different fucking game, Valve. Like, surely some guy didn't just finally go, finally, my entry is empty. It's like, how many years did that take? Like, was this guy going for inbox 0 or something like that? Right? I've worked my way to 2014 and I fixed boosting. It's like, well, it's a bit late for that, isn't it? Olafmeister's career has ended since then, bro. But anyway, whatever.
By the way, just because I watched this and just because I did the whole video on the Olaf boost back in the day and just because I've seen the clip about 10 million times, I got the sense, and I haven't gone back to look at it, but I get my brain when I was watching that on Reddit just a few days back told me that Anders casted that with basically the same cadence, the same exact like phrasing, like not the exact words, but the similar kind of sentiments and phrasing, and like it was actually just like deja vu. I feel like if you watch those clips side by side, yeah,
he was the one casting the magic clip.
Yeah, he's like raining down death from above. I think he's saying the same exact words in these clips of him on the Olaf boost in this most recent one. Like, go back and listen to it, because like it's not the same words, but the same sentiment and cadence over and over. Like, how much enjoy.
No, but what I love is the idea. It's like Anders went full unk mode, like, oh, I'm back in my element. Yeah, Michael Jordan, I love this. This is awesome. Like, yeah,
I know how to cast this moment. Yes.
I know. But, by the way, the sad thing is, I will say it. I'm not just saying this as a friend. Anders never has actually cynically used it. But imagine if Anders was actually washed and he was just spamming like inhuman reactions, like just doing all of his greatest moments, trying to recreate. You're like, this is just like the offer, raining down death from above. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not saying I don't mean it to be a criticism.
It's a good cast. I know.
It was like I was like, what year is it? I was sat there in the green room like I've been transported back like 10 years.
Okay. Well, good job so far, guys. We've got shots against Anders Bloom, Doss, like, you know. Let's keep all the examples historical for the last part of the show. Okay. So the last point of the show, you were promised it earlier, but you tried to have your dessert before you'd finished your first course and your vegetables. Don't worry, Maui. This topic's just for you, homie. I've purposely put it in the ugly category. Here's why. The reason it's in ugly is I don't think you don't have a point, right? It's true. At these two events where Spirit has looked way better, it also turns out they didn't have Hallie with them on site, and they had this guy, Sotfik, who was their academy coach and was a former player, and he's been the guy on site with them doing it. Now, I saw a lot on your social media, so I'm not sure what you discussed on all the desks, that you were making the point that like they look way better and some of these aspects look more coherent and a lot of things we wanted to happen, right? My issue is this, and this is why I also want to make this actually like an open topic too, is I don't know that you were, but I feel like to some fans this is like, right, see, Hallie was just a fraud. Actually, they should put the Sotfik guy as the coach. The reason I've picked it as ugly is because to me, I always feel like people go too hard with the idea that coaching is just like what you hear in the timeout. Like, it's the same reason why when Mongolz don't have Mara, I don't think it's the end of the world. True, he can't make a blade timeout where you do an amazing thing that shifts the whole gear. But a lot of coaching is done off the server when you're at home, and it's in scrims, and it's things like, I'm pretty sure Hallie must have done this. I'm sure at the end of the day when they go back to the hotel room, he does like a Discord call with them or something. And
I'll even cut in right here. He didn't.
He doesn't? Fair enough.
We know he didn't. Zontic said that it's Sotfik.
Okay.
Zontic said in a post-game interview after their 2-0 game win over Furia that Sotfik did a lot to change how this team is functioning, and that he's partially and mainly responsible for why they've had this sort of look.
Okay. Well, listen, then I'll set you up. Then it's a good, ugly topic. But here's the thing. You still can't act like, it's not like the team had their memories wiped and then Sotfik took over coaching and built everything. All the rest of the things are still Hallie's.
The crazy thing is that Zontix basically says that. He actually says that we basically threw out.
Why is this motherfucker piping up? He hasn't said anything for 3.5 years. So the old Asian girls go, he's mysterious. Gets under here. Like, why is he suddenly, he can't shut the fuck up? If I'm Hallie, come on, do some dastard shit on this motherfucker. No, call him up right now, tell him to shut the fuck up. Wind his neck in. And he's ruining my points on shorts. Exactly, it's bitch.
Getting into this more, it's crazy. So in the post-game interview, when they won versus Furia, Zontix talks so much in depth about how they've basically thrown out everything. Okay. Sotfik came in with all these new ideas.
This guy got talkative, didn't he? I know, fucking hell. Okay.
And then it was almost like that became, as soon as he said that, I mean, first I was noticing the play. Okay. Then he says that, I'm like, oh my God, like this is a completely new Spirit. Okay. And they're just changing everything because they got Sotfik behind him. Then Shiro, in an interview when they won their quarterfinal, kind of said that Sotfik helped with certain aspects, like the flashes and stuff, or that he put an emphasis on certain things. And then the next day, then I think words from higher up at Spirit said, guys, we can't keep talking about this. And Donk said Sotfik did nothing. That's what he said. He said that.
And we're like, I love the way you make it sound like some actual Soviet shit. Like he came out like, I would like to address, he did nothing, and I still respect the dear leader, Ali, who is the...
That's basically how it went. We saw it all unfold before our eyes. That it was
why's it got to be the best player in the world? Why's it got to be like the guy with the biggest voice trotting out there to be like, nope, this bitch does nothing?
No, the PR trained, the no PR trained answer was Zontix. And then you see the semi PR trained answer, and then you see words from Spirit, that management that said, stop, you're giving it all away.
Okay. What do you think about this, Moses?
Again, I haven't seen Spirit play, so I can't address everything. I just think I think it's appropriate for the ugly situation, because I think if I'm GMing Spirit right now, I'm telling Satvik he's coaching the major. I called him during the trophy lift to tell him that, or like I fucking told him at the after party. Like I don't know how you could do that to him or the team or Hallie even. Like what the fuck job is Hallie supposed to do after he's been out? How long has he been out now? Like 2 months, three, 4 events, and be like, hey man, they've all been having a great time lifting trophies and looking much better, and now I want you to go back and take the reins over and see what happens. Like how are what happens the first time a player at the major says, but we were doing it this way, why are we changing back to this way? You've now created a very weird situation, and I think that's a big spark plug for implosion. So I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it is kind of ridiculous. Not ridiculous, but we just kind of have to trust that Spirit's gonna make, in some sense, the right decision, because they're the only ones who truly know what Satvik is providing. All the evidence we have is since he stepped in, there's been market improvement for a team that was underperforming, that wasn't a challenger, and that should have been a challenger. So when this comes around, I think you're just in a very weird place if Holly re-enters the mix. Sad to say.
Like, put it this way, Maui, without being too extreme, if they were to say for the major, that really was just for 2 events, Hallie's back for the major, do you think they will be worse? Do you think they'll regress to whatever they were doing before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think they're going to play worse now. I think that they might take some of the aspects of what they did with Satvik, and then they'll try to keep some of those ideas, but without Satvik's direction, I think that this team is tactically inferior to the team that we saw throughout Astana. And
I hope they win the major, and then Hallie just comes on the mic and goes, listen, Zontix, I don't pay you to talk. And then he just fucking takes the MVP for himself. There you go. This rat fucking...
Yeah.
I mean, here's the real fucking crazy.
Also, by the way, Zontix also still hasn't learned his lesson. The only other time I can ever remember him doing an interview was the infamous I don't have pressure problems on stage. Like, so maybe stay off the mic, mate. It ain't for you. You know what I mean? Like, leave it to other people.
I think the real message. What happens if 2 or 3 of the players want Satvik and 2 or 3 of the players want Hallie back? What if 4 of the players want Satvik and Donk wants Hallie back?
I think Donk does
what a fucking weird situation.
Yeah. Also, since they filmed so much behind the scenes stuff, you better film the video where they all decide to do a mutiny and kick Hallie out the team or something. That better be an episode after all the shit I've seen. Come on.
Yeah, that's fair play. They've released everything else. Yeah, I don't know. This, I mean, I think it's really cool for Satvik, to be honest with you. I mean, obviously, I think his kind of perspective, just from browsing through an interview where we were chatting, is mostly saying he changes some small details within the bigger picture that Hallie likes. So he's like kind of like that thing of, I'm changing some things, yes, but not changing the broad strokes. So nothing truly changes. So it does feel like a lot of like political speech to not cast shade and and kind of like make a weird public kind of fucking angle to it. So I don't know. It's all a little bit of a mystery, and like I said, I haven't seen them play yet. But I would just say based off the fucking results, I'm going with Satvik, and I'm like, yeah, bro, you just lifted us a trophy. Do it again in Germany.